Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey.
Hello. It
What's
is
going on,
Scotch
people?
for Dummies on a Thursday Night Live.
Welcome.
Ooh.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers, cheers,
Cheers.
cheers.
And cheers to all of you.
Man, we've got a fun show tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Martin, I see Martin in the background. We're going to get you on a little bit, buddy. I see you, so hang tight.
Our patron guest.
Look at this. 1 minute in, and we already got 9 likes. I like
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do got a good topic tonight. We actually have a lot to talk about. Is not just the topic, but our guest and some other more fun stuff. We do have a trivia, I believe, Drew. Do we not?
We do.
That's-
Fingers crossed.
and a few
And
wheel
a
spins.
And a surprise ball.
And a surprise at the end.
That's
I kind of
exciting.
alluded to it in the patron post, so all you patrons out there probably know what we're going to do, but we'll get to it. So tonight's topic, why we chose this topic.
It's a weird mix in front of us. Why would we have
Yeah,
that?
right. We're going to compare and contrast, or more compare, just talk about the differences and the similarities between Scotch whiskey, which we love, single malt
it is
Scotch
Scotch for
whiskey.
Dummies.
Let's be clarifying about that. But also into the newest member of the defined whiskey classes here in America, American Single Malt, which, if you've been paying attention to us, we're getting pretty heavy into. We've got a bottle out that we've already put out, and we've got another one coming, actually a couple more coming. So
Yep.
we want to talk about, try to make sure that everybody out there that doesn't know that, what American Single Malt is, maybe get to know what it is by comparing it to your single malt scotches that you know,
That's
right?
key.
What's the differences? And there's some really cool things that I learned about when I was trying to research them. I mean, obviously they're all made from single malt. What's that mean, right?
Yep.
So
Well, are they, though? I mean, because I guess single malt Scotch whiskey has to be
100%.
yeah.
Right. So that's why we said single malt. We're not talking about blends and stuff.
Yep.
But so that's one thing they have in common. They're all made from 100% malted barley. Got that,
Mhm.
right? But one thing that's really interesting is everybody that knows Scotch, they know there's how many Scotch regions we got, guys? Can you name them? Put you on the spot.
It's 6, right?
Technically,
Yeah, give me the technical. I want the answer here.
we'll talk Highlands,
Okay, Highlands,
Lowlands,
Lowlands,
Islands,
Islands,
Speyside.
Speyside, and then the infamous
Campbelltown, the Shack.
Islay.
That's a low one.
Yeah. So I mean, we've got these regions, but if you look at the United States, it's got some regions too that are probably more defined or different than the regions because of the
Correct.
separation of
Geographically, environmentally, the regions in the U.S. are much more broad.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about the rules because there's some differences in the rules. I learned a little bit about this new American Single Malt thing that I was a little bit. I guess I missed it when the announcement came out. I thought I read it, and understood.
Did we
the
cover it
rules.
on this?
They
show?
didn't have
No, we
you
didn't.
vet it.
But
It's weird.
I missed something, and I actually had to go back and reread it. I'm like, really? Is that okay? But we'll get to that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where you guys want to start. Let's just back it up to the beginning and talk about what single malted barley or single malt means in Scotland and what it means here in the United States as far as the rules. So in Scotland, we've got some rules that are established by the Scotch Whisky Association, SWA, and those rules have been around for, I don't know.
A while.
Yeah,
more than 5 years.
Let's just say a while. A lot longer than the American Single Malt ones, right?
That's
Which just got vetted, right?
Actually, more than the bourbon ones, probably. But anyway.
And what are the rules to be single malt Scotch whiskey?
So 100% malted barley,
There's one.
Made it one distillery.
Yes.
single distillery, distilled, aged, and bottled in Scotland.
True to that.
Minimum 3 years.
Minimum 3 years. There's the big ones. Now, there are some more technical rules in there about what it can be aged in as far as what kind of barrels. And it's some kind of fruit that they can't be. What's that?
No peachwood.
It's got to be aged in oak
No
barrels.
peachwood?
I think it's oak
Some may
barrels.
argue that with you.
Yeah, but what can be in the barrels before Scotch goes into them? There's something that they can't. It has to be like pitted fruits or something. What's that called?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
There's
the name
also
of
an
it.
ABV, a distillate, and ABV going in barrels, those kind of things. But
Yeah.
we're not going to.
We're not going to dive into that.
More minor.
But when you get into the American side of the house, a lot of that's still kind of true,
Very
right?
similar.
You still got to be distilled at a single distillery,
Aged in
aged
the
and
US.
bottled in the U.S.,
Yep.
all that stuff. But the age requirement is what jumps out.
Yeah. So you don't need an age, right?
Don't need an age. I thought it was 2 years. Well, it's 2 years if you want to use the term straight American single malt whiskey, just like it is in the bourbon world.
That's so weird.
Which
I was kind of against that one a little bit. I was like, now you guys, you're being confusing to the rest of the world. But the TTB aired and took the one guy that fought for that in the comments and aired, took his side, even though the Scotch Whiskey Association, the Irish Whiskey, all of them were saying, no, don't use that thing. Just put an age statement on it.
No, because, and I agree with this, because if you're aging a whiskey in Texas, 3 years is going to overcook it. So
Well,
I don't.
okay.
So there are
So
regions.
make it 2 years.
Well, okay, but what about Albuquerque, New Mexico? You're going to cook it in 2 years.
That's a very interesting point you're making there, because when we haven't got into it yet, I know we're going to talk about the regions and the weather and all that different things. But I mean, you're absolutely right. You got to have an
18 months
asterisk.
in Texas is sometimes a sweet spot. So
Because in Scotland they don't have anything like
there's
that.
there's never 2 years.
It's a slow
It's a slow maturation every region.
maybe it's just me though. Like I agree with your point. Like I think that the regions in the U.S. are diverse enough that you're going to kind of have to like err on the side of not screwing over certain regions for other regions in favor of whatever. But the straight label,
I don't know about that.
like that gets a little too esoteric for me. And I buy whiskey, and every time I go in, I'm like straight bourbon. And I don't remember what that means because I never remember what that
Right.
means,
Who
and I don't
does?
really pay any attention. So to me, it's just making things more confusing for no reason.
I agree.
Yeah, because that's not fair that, a straight American single malt from Portland is competing against a non-straight American single malt from Texas or Albuquerque, New Mexico or something where, okay, so you made it 25 months in Portland. It's still going to be young and green. And
I guess I just don't understand what the designation gets you. Like,
more than 2 years.
who cares?
Yeah.
Put a number on there. It's fine.
Pull the notes up, Drew. Look at some of these. Ooh, almost a party foul.
Almost.
Wow. So there's, okay, let's go. What do we got here?
So the big difference there is the age statements between the two, right? But that's not enough to say they're too drastically different to me, right?
Mhm.
I guess what I really want to do and get out of this conversation is just to show the similarities, because I
Yeah,
want our Scotch lovers, I want all of our Scotch fans out there to know that they can step over to the American single malt
Well,
and find a
And
winner.
it's going to be something new, but
But
close enough,
comparable,
right?
So, based on your research and what I titled tonight's show is American Single Malt the next big thing, comparing Scotch and American Single Malt. To your point, so tonight's episode is talking through differences in both sides. But I mean, in reality, is American Single Malt the next big thing to hit? I mean, I feel like it is, based on our discoveries and journeys, based on what's new, based on how many years since something like that has passed, and it's becoming something. It is single grain. It is farm to distillery. It's all these things that we love and think about it. And the fact that, which again, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but the fact that there are so many comparisons that we can like to like. The difference is the huge United States, the vast regions, if you will, climate controls. And then to your point earlier about the rules, that also plays into it a little bit as well.
For sure.
In Scotland, they have pretty much, for the most part, one kind of climate.
Some coastal,
some
effect,
coastal different things,
but it's always cold everywhere.
It's slow rolling,
Well,
right?
and one big notice that difference is in Scotch whiskey, you're probably going to find a lot more of them that have that briny note because of coastal. I mean, it's an island, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's out right there on the ocean, surrounded. Where
And
you've
North
got distilleries
Sea
here in the United States that are nowhere near a saltwater body of water.
Pretty
True.
much.
But when you look at some of these other things, some of these other notes, one thing that Scotch in Scotland is known for is peated whiskey, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
That's a good point.
it's not really a thing here in the States. Not saying there aren't distilleries that aren't doing it, because there are.
Yes, sir.
But where are they
But
drawing their peat
We,
from?
we don't have a lot of peat
Bogs,
sources.
right?
Correct.
So-
U.S. peat is not that common. There are some areas in the Northwest that have some
Right.
But
It's
we also
precious,
have some
yeah.
also good woods now it is allowed in American
Sure.
Single Malt. You can do whatever, essentially
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want to the grain,
Right.
as long as it's malted.
So, but I mean, I know Westland, they do have some whiskeys bottled back that they peated with Washington peat. And because they are Westland's whole mission is to produce American single malts that reflect the Pacific Northwest. So they're getting into that terroir
yeah.
thing, right?
Well, to me, I know the talk is how these are similar to Scotch, but to me, as a whiskey drinker, the things that make them different are the things that I think make them interesting and make people want to go drink them.
So give us some examples. What do you mean by that?
Well, for instance, because a lot of these are, boutique whiskeys here, right? And they're just getting started.
Mhm.
So I can go buy a bottle of, Glenlivet or Glenmoe for a very reasonable amount of money.
Mhm.
American Single Malt is going to be a little more expensive than all that. So what I'm looking for out of that bottle is if I buy it and it tastes just like Glenlivet, then why am I paying the extra?
Yeah.
Right? But if it actually has flavors that you can kind of tie back and identify as like a local flavor or something unique to the United States. So like the one that I always bring up is that Del Bach bottle because it's smoked with mesquite.
Oh,
And-
so good.
and
That's such a good bottle.
To me, it's unlike it's similar enough to Scotch that you're like, oh yeah, it's a single malt. Like I can get that flavor profile in it, but it's also got that taste of where it came from.
Right.
And I find that interesting. And a lot of like McCarthy's and Westlands and some of the they're trying to do that more. And I find that that's interesting because it's just like a new region of this thing that I already know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Another thing that we haven't touched upon, so we talk about the differences of, peat and stuff like that, but what about the barley?
Well,
Is the barley different here in the United States? I mean, I know in India they use different strains of barley. You've got 2-row and 6-row. I think.
Yeah.
What are we using here in the States? And are the varieties different?
If I'm not mistaken, the 6-row is usually for like cattle feed and stuff like that, right? The 2-row is like for brewing and distilling.
I always mix that up. I think the 2-row does have more starch in it, so it ferments better, whereas the 6-row more protein.
Yes,
which is what you want.
That's what I remember as well. So it's probably 2-row barley.
Yeah.
It may be a different varietal
because
they have like the last time I did the grain research, every like 3 to 5 years, I think they're retiring the strains that they're using right now, and they're bringing in new strains to kind of like try to combat diseases and climate issues and whatever. Like they're constantly, looking for a new strain because it just is what it is. So I'm sure that's like that over here. I don't know that it would be the exact same one that they're using over in
People may say, does it matter?
Or,
but it must make some difference because there's distilleries in Scotland that are very particular about the barleys they're using, and some are doing that local, farm to bottle type stuff, which
I don't know that it matters quite as much.
I would agree.
Exactly. Like it's at the end of the day, it's a commodity grain. So I think as long as it's at the same, they're gonna check the moisture content, like how these grains are, if they're cracked or not, damaged, whatever. As long as it's at the same quality level. Now I think that they're definitely, we had an Octomore yesterday that was a single field. And some of that I think is it's cool and all, but I don't know that it really affects the.
Yeah, I would argue barley is probably one of a minor influence. It's your cuts of your stills, the way you run your stills, and quite honestly, the finishing is going to influence your whiskey way more than the barley will.
Well, let's actually break that down a little bit because we talk a lot about different places you can make whiskey in general, whether it's bourbon or Indian whiskey or whatever. But the DNA of a whiskey, right? Obviously, it's the same, but it's different based on where you're making it, right? Like you were just getting ready to go into the type of stills. So you could get
water source.
The barley you could get 10 distilleries to use the same barley.
Yeah, sure.
And in fact, they usually do.
And they will make very different whiskey.
Yep.
Because the way they cut their stills, the still shape, the barrels they use, all that kind of stuff. Because the barrels are over half the flavor, just in the barrel. So then in your new make, you have the way you cut your column, which is probably the key flavor. Well, still shape and with the way you cut your stills is going to be your key flavor component for your distillate. If you have tall stills, you get florals. If you get short fat stills, you get a heavier spirit. That's just physics coming through there. And then behind that there's water, and behind that there's barley, and then behind that there's water, because you're only burning over as little water as you can. And the solids and the proteins in your water are going to stay in your still. They're not going to come over. So
it's the maturation time, and that's also a gamble too, right? Because you could pour the same exact liquid in 2 different casks, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, that one's ready, but that one's nowhere
Well,
close.
For sure.
every distillery will tell you that I filled 5 barrels on this day, and for some reason barrel 1 cooked, and number 5 never put any flavor into the whiskey.
Which is crazy.
It just the wood. I mean, it's a natural product.
So there's so many variables, is what we're saying.
It's not a stainless steel cask. It's a natural product that you put your whiskey in, and you hope that the tree was good to you.
So that's a variable that every distiller has to play with.
Every distillery.
So some notable examples, because I want to talk about what's going on here in the States when it comes to American single malts. Some tried and true notable examples of American single malts, right? If you just said the words American single malt, we can rattle off a ton of them. A vast majority of them are new to the game because they've been doing bourbon for rye for a long time.
Or gins.
Right, they'll make 1 or 2. But there are a handful of American single malt distilleries that have been doing American single malt for a long freaking time, right?
100%. Yep.
Westland, Stranahan's, been in the game for a long time. Virginia Distilling, that's all they do, type of stuff. But now there's also all these other distilleries out there that are shooting out American single malts. And when I think about it, we got a new distillery pops up and going to make some American single malts. Okay, keep an eye on them. Oh, there's a new distillery popping up in Scotland too, Ardnamurchan or whatever, right? Well, keep an eye on them. The difference that I see happening between the two is the new American single malt distillery is coming out the gate trying to be a wizard. You know, we're going to do this crazy stout finish, and we're going to put some of this and some of that on there, and it's like, whoa, man, you haven't proven to me that you can make really good whiskey yet. What are you doing? You look over in Scotland, the new distilleries that come out, you know what they're putting out? Good, solid, clean Scotch whiskey. No crazy finishes out the gate. They're like, hey, everybody, this is our whiskey. We want you to get to know it, and then we're going to have some fun with it later. And so I respect the old guys in America, the Stranahans, the Westlands, the ones that have been around for a while making the stuff, the McCarthys. You guys have my acceptance to get creative. And the new ones, I want to see you come out and make some good whiskey before you think you're going to get crafty and throw these crazy finishes on there that you're like, no, that doesn't work. Why did you do that?
I think your point's valid, but to be devil's advocate, we don't have a whole lot of experience with to say, oh, have we had that yet? Have some of these done that yet and said, hey, this is my distillate. This is my bourbon experiment.
Yeah, it's going to be the experience of the distiller, because they may be able to pull a great distillate. You know, they'll have to dial in their stills when they're first running, and they know that this distillate will age well, and because that's what a distiller does.
But your point's valid, though. It's almost like, what are you hiding? Why are we trying not to just give me?
Well,
you know,
is it what they're trying? Are they trying to compete with bourbon? Is that what it is?
Well, the thing that I worry about is it's institutional knowledge, right? Like if you were a master distiller at a Scotch distillery, you probably started when you were 15,
and
you've been there for 30 years, and you know everything there is to know
it's a small world over there
about making whiskey, right? Before they're going to give you the reins. And a lot of those distilleries, for obvious reasons, they've been around for hundreds of years. We don't want you to screw this up, guy. Like, you're going to have to cut your teeth and prove that you know what you're talking about, right?
And then in 20 years, you can start your own distillery.
And then over here, it's just like some guys that are like, hey,
brewing beer.
Well, it's either, people that want to start a single malt distillery, like they have a love of Scotch, or for whatever reason they want to start one, great. Or it's people that are already doing distilling that are, into bourbon or whatever. And for them, it might just be, let's try one. And I don't think they're going to get the results that way. That, like, I'm more excited about the ones that are like, we want this to be really good whiskey.
Right.
And we're solely going to focus on this. And we'll run some vodka through our stills because we got bills to pay, right? And that's fine. I don't care about that.
But if you got 3 or 4 presentations of single malts in your core range, you can do all the gins and vodkas you want, but you're clearly committed to a quality
Yep.
malt whiskey.
As opposed to you're doing one run of single malt every year because it's leftover grain. Or
Right.
something.
I don't know what to do with all this barley I got left. Let's just throw it in and make one batch.
Tom made a good point earlier, and yeast. He said yeast is something we didn't talk about. I don't know. I think it does.
Yeast in fermentation time does, because you get esters and those sweet apples and things like that. Those do come through in the fermentation and during yeast choices. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Andrew, I was doing some research the other day, and a Scotch that I was looking into talked about running the stills at a little bit lower temperature. So so the still run time took a little longer.
Yes.
Is there a benefit to that?
Yeah,
What does
so
that do?
when you do that, you get less boil over. So a lot of the proteins and the heavy oils and things like that, if you run it real hot and real fast, some of that's going to essentially spray into the vapor coming off.
Okay.
And so it's going to carry over. Whereas if you run them real slow, you're just you're almost at a simmer, then you're just getting the light boilers, and it's going to be a lighter, floral, sweeter whiskey.
Okay.
Makes sense.
You're not going to be as heavy. Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we, we ran right into the topic. We didn't say hi to anybody that was on. Do we want to take a 5-minute breather here to see the comments? Because there are probably a lot of good content.
97 comments already.
About what we've been talking about. Is that your microphone, Andrew?
That was
It
my
was.
microphone.
Andrew's out.
He's out.
Man down.
All right.
Man down.
So yeah, we have our regulars on. Everwin, Stuff for Work. M2za, nice.
Welcome.
See that one, Justin.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Tamar.
There's our guy Tom. Ethan. Hannah.
Yeah.
Joe's Whiskey Den.
Justin's in there.
Malt Million.
Hey, Mark JG. How we doing down
Whiskey
there?
Habit. Nice.
Doctor time. Dr.
True
Fitch is
enough.
in the house, but we'll talk to
Who
her.
That's
here
true.
sips on Johnny Red Label? Well, not many sippers on that one.
Yeah, I don't call that a sipper typically, but
Damon's watching from Japan.
Wow,
Nice.
That's like
That's cool.
14 hours ahead of us right now.
see,
Well, he's got a good dram pour.
bright in the
Something
morning. It's like
Japanese.
Friday
That's
morning.
good.
It's true. Gregor's on. Good to see you as well. Lots of good people
Rico
in there.
7.
Dale Milner, nice to see
Welcome.
you.
Sky's the limit with
See,
ASMs.
And he
Yeah.
likes
Oh, look at that guy, Cato. Haven't seen him in a while. Good to see you, sir.
Right on.
Joe Humbert.
We
Oh,
got a
Jules.
lot of good people
I saw
on.
Jules up there. What? Yeah, that's
Jules?
another.
Oh yeah.
Jules Juvenat. Westland Saloon is a Finnish.
So I do see a lot of good comments. You guys are having good conversation and chat about the topic, and especially I can see where you've been following what we've been talking about. So it's interesting, and to put a point on it, where we're going to go. I know that I wanted to compare the regions, and if you have our notes, there's a table I have in our notes where
that's a good one.
Where we can. What I want to talk about is if you know your Scotch regions, right? Are you a Speyside guy or gal?
Down.
Or are you a Highland person, an Islay person, whatever it may be? What's the comparison here in the States that you can get? So if you're a Speyside guy, are you a Pacific Northwest guy too? And we did some research to try to draw these comparisons. Not saying they're 100% accurate; they're all opinion and subjective. But
There we go.
it's a good conversation to have. So if you're
is this what you want?
if you're a Speyside person, which there's probably a good chance you are, because how many distilleries are in Speyside?
A lot.
Most of them.
Right. That's the number. Exactly. On the freaking head, Sean. You nailed it. If you like in the Speyside flavor profile, it's probably close to the Pacific Northwest. Both regions produce smooth, fruit-forward malts. Although, according to the notes, U.S. versions do tend to have more of an oak spice from the new oak barrels and stuff. But it's a good starting point. So if you're really into Speyside scotches and you want to try an American single malt, pick one of your Pacific Northwests, right? Which is what? Westward, Westland.
McCarthy's?
Stranahan's, I guess we
No,
kind of.
no, that's Colorado.
No, that's an excellent.
I think McCarthy's is up. Is
Technically,
McCarthy?
yeah.
So stick to those, and there's a good starting
Oh, I
point
see.
of
Yep.
of jumping off and experimenting. But take one of the other regions here.
Okay, here you go. Westland American. Yeah, okay.
Okay. And then the next one was the Highlands. So you typically have a less sweet, more balanced malt character. That tends to align with Colorado. I mean, these are great generalities right now, but with a higher altitude, it does do it has some effect on the maturation process. So they make rich whiskeys, but again, you're not doing a lot of cask finishing. It's more of a, this is the meat and potatoes kind of whiskey, which I would agree Stranahan's is kind of an example of that, where you get that good hearty,
Stranahan's good stuff.
hearty whiskey.
That's good stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's like peach on this.
What is this? Are you doing the?
No,
I
no,
did
I'm
the
doing
Del
Lost
Bach.
Lantern actually.
I did the Del Bach
I was
one.
gonna do
It
Speaking
does
of-
have a little peach.
Just giving a Lost Lantern a plug. They are creating some wonderful combinations out there of American single malts right now.
They are.
Because they're pulling casks from all over the country.
Well, and they've been on a bourbon kick for quite a while, but they're steering into the American single malt as well. Sean, why don't you talk about Islay? What's a good comparison here in the United States?
We're looking at Texas, and I would assume the entire Southwest region, right?
I agree with you on that.
So, you know, New Mexico, Arizona, at least southern Arizona, big, bold flavors, smoke. Because you've got that higher heat, you're going to get whiskeys that, you know, cook, I guess, a little bit in the cask a little bit more. You're going to get more barrel influence out of those. We've got a few that are doing skeet. We talked about Del Bach. I think, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised to see other distilleries try that or something similar to that, because the U.S. has a history of barbecue, and wood is super important in that.
Yeah.
Right.
And it imparts a ton of flavor. So it would be interesting to see if there's other distilleries that kind of copy that drive.
Yeah, I just had a sample of this McCarthy's. This is the peated. Woo! That is no joke. I mean, that would rival an island.
I mean, this comparison, Islay and Texas, or like you said, or Southwest. Obviously, you know, the Southwest isn't like heavily peated. It's not going to be like the Freud. We're just trying to give folks that like that Scotch region, similar to start in the United States region, to the starting point. You're going to find something you like, and the likelihood you find something you like is higher if you're following this. So Drew, why don't you take Lowlands, which is not a big popular region in Scotland, right?
Yeah, it's not. I think this is a really interesting kind of concept here of trying to. It's like that the old school thing. That looks pretty good to me. You know, like so.
Which
ones?
crosses?
Yeah, Lowlands in California. So we've got both focus on lighter floral and fruit-driven whiskeys, but you know, American versions are more experimental.
That's what I was talking about earlier, though. That's what I'm not crazy about that experiment. I'm not against experimenting, but show me you know how to make whiskey.
casks and those weird California beers and casks.
We've had a few California whiskeys, and they have been definitely different.
I remember
say.
you did a short
You
with,
did.
with redwood bourbon. It's like, ooh, that's
I
fruity.
think you
That's
offended
gotta-
a few people.
Oh yeah, I forgot
That's
about
fruity.
that.
That's got to be from California.
Yeah.
I will say I am kind of anxious because I think about like these comparisons for food and the cuisine of that area, and I'm kind of curious, like the taste profiles, right? So like Scotch Blue, right?
Yes,
not
made for
our
the Korean
favorite
market.
you know, not our favorite,
No.
but for that market, that was what they were looking for
Yes,
that's what they wanted.
specifically. And so I wonder how much of that will play into
It's
these
got to.
distilleries and what they're trying to aim for.
Because most of these single malt distilleries are local distilleries. They're not.
Yes.
They don't do nationwide distribution, and definitely not global distribution. So they're trying to hit the market around them, and this is what people around them want in their whiskey, and so that's what they hit.
So the Campbelltown region in Scotland is being compared to New England in the United States. Both
Some
both
Boston
malt heavy profiles, but the difference there is there's more of a climate shift in New England than there is in the Campbelltown area of Scotland, right? And that's pretty. You can say that about all of them because Scotland's pretty linear as far as shifting in climates. But that's just the comparison that was drawn up here. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but in looking through these, it makes me want to go out and try them too. And I'm sure we will because we're getting into American single malts as we have been.
This is a really, I know you got a couple more, but this is a really interesting experiment because it's something that we've talked about for a while about just trying to figure out does ASM have regions? And I feel like, yeah, they do, but comparing it to Scotch regions is very hard
And subjective.
because it's not, but it's a true thing. We definitely have pockets of flavor profiles going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's very new, very early in the age of figuring. Like you said earlier, one of you guys said about the tryhards of that have been around for a while. They've kind of created some pockets of westward and Balcones and whatnot. They've got their tried and trues, but there are a lot of brand newers out there that we haven't figured them out yet.
Those brand newers haven't figured out their own climate process.
Right.
Those tried and trues, they've been doing it long enough. They know how long it takes to bake a cask.
Well, it's
True.
And that would be interesting to know
So
about like Cedar Ridge, which is an established American single malt distillery in Iowa.
Iowa.
And what do they taste like? What is their kind of
We're just starting to
what
get
is
into
their
those.
guiding light?
Yeah,
That quintessential is great.
it is good.
Yeah.
And so there's one other region, and it's not technically an official Scotch region, which is the Islands.
The islands.
Is it?
It includes Iowa.
No, Islay is its own region. The Islands
Island-
are an unofficial.
Islands are
They're
part
not
of-
technically
They're part
a
of
region.
Highland, technically, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
The 6th region or
But-
whatever you
but-
call it.
Yes.
But the thing is, that what this recommends is a Pacific Coast, which includes Pacific Northwest and California. So I'm not sure that's its own
Right.
region either.
Now, the only thing that I will say though is the coast, the Pacific Coast, is got
Right on the edge. Yeah.
have a maritime influence,
Yeah.
which we talked about a little bit, which is I appreciate in Scotch. I love that briny note.
Oh,
in some of
sure,
the
yeah.
Scotches,
Sure.
right? You can taste the
This is good.
what is it? Old
Yeah.
Pulteney. I think their Dunwich house is like 2 feet from like a couple 100-foot drop off into the ocean. I mean, you get some briny
North
saltiness
Sea,
in there.
you get the wind,
Talisker, man, you don't get briny on Talisker. You're not.
Oh,
That's
drinking
brown.
Old Pulteney, hello.
I know exactly. So
But I will say, Old Pulteney, you have some brininess to it. But man, they're malt.
yeah, it's definitely a malt forward whiskey.
Good Lord,
So do you
Um,
think that, because this is kind of a generality, right?
Sure,
very much
yeah.
so.
And I'm looking at some of the comparisons like lowlands in California. Are we talking Southern California? Are we talking Northern California? 'Cause
Two
those
different-
are two different things.
Very
Absolutely.
different regions. Yeah.
And so I wonder if it will become more of like whiskey styles rather than whiskey regions a little
That's
bit.
where I was
It
getting
will.
at earlier. I don't think it's going to be the
Yeah,
same
'cause, I mean,
context.
you have Week of Peat by Balvenie, which is what a space side, which
Yeah.
is a really excellent peated whiskey, but it's not at all Islay, and
But-
it's not at all representative of the region.
We could argue that the Scotch regions have sort of washed out a little bit, not just because of distilleries doing that, but because of technology and where we are.
Supply chain, yeah, they
Supply
can get-
chain is there.
Yep.
I can get peat
They-
from anywhere.
Yeah, they just bring in it's already peated malt.
Right.
You buy
It's all, yeah.
You know?
And I'll actually have two things. One is, let's talk about regions in general from Scotland too. Like, there's quite a bit going on over there, but it's compared to U.S. I mean,
Still pretty
it's
small.
It's small, right? We have a lot of big different.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
the second thing is, some people that we know will argue the whole region thing's BS, because to your
Yep.
point, I get the stuff you're getting is the same stuff I'm getting, and the only thing I will say to that is, I don't know about some of the maturation processes. So I mean, you put stuff in a coastal cold versus kind of an inland somewhere with it's just water stuff. I mean, there's got to be some play into that region there a little bit.
There is.
There has to be.
It's just washed out over the years. Here we are in 2025.
Well, and-
and
And there are massive warehouses in Scotland that age whiskey for multiple distilleries.
sure.
They bring them all here. and-
Right.
yeah.
Just because I distill it in the Speyside region doesn't mean I mature it there. So then I take it up to Orkney or I take it down to the lowlands. Is it truly that a region whiskey now? Yeah,
Yep. You're right.
that's where it starts to
I,
wash
I
out.
will
very
be
much so.
curious, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years from now, I think you'll have American single malt stuff that you can definitively say.
Oh, yeah.
But right now, it's the Wild West.
Totally.
Everybody's just trying to figure out what they want to do and how they want to do it. And
I think that's fun.
I think there'll be some really cool, unique, experimental things trying to make it, an American, definitely from here, which I think is great.
So back to the beginning, is American single malt the next big thing? To that point, I say absolutely, because we are on the precipice of kind of a new thing that's happening. That it's a big thing that they got awarded all the information and say, yes, this is what you have to do, rules like legislation, all that stuff, and it's the very beginning of who knows what's coming on. It's a Wild West of good stuff. Like, we've had a plethora.
I like that
I-
word.
Good term.
I will
Plethora
say
of
though, it reminds me more of like Scotland in the like 1500s when it's all like illicit distilling, because you don't know what you're going to
So
kind
true.
of get,
It's
right?
so
true.
Like,
So keep in mind,
not every bottle is great.
the regions were developed when you didn't have global distribution.
Right.
So again, you were selling whiskey to the people around you, and this is the kind of whiskey that the people around you liked. Just like American single malts are now, you're selling whiskey to the people around you, and that's what's going to define what the whiskey does. So it's really, American single malt has a huge potential. It also has some probable terrible failures. So you've got to find your whiskey that works for you in the American single malt class.
Well, the good news is it's like rolling the dice. They're really, I mean,
That's why we can help you.
we're trying to explore and help you with our journey. But I mean, there's a good handful of guarantors, right? We talked about them a little bit already. The nice thing is there's so many brand newers. These
Yeah.
words we're making up tonight is great. That we're
You're the
experimenting,
decider.
right? We're the deciders. Oh my gosh! But yeah, it's so true. I mean, it's a new world.
It is.
So
It's
to
exciting.
bring the conversation to a close, it's what the goal was is to talk to all of our Scotch lovers that are watching, everybody out there that loves whiskey, particularly Scotch whiskey, Scotch for Dummies, and try to draw some comparisons and some parallels to the American single malt industry that is literally just newborn. It's coming up, and there's some really interesting things there. And if you love Scotch, you're going to start playing in this world. And where do you start? I mean, yeah, there's other good single malts out there. You've got Taiwanese, you got Indian, you've got Japanese, so there's good single malts all around the world. And I'm excited to see the United States is getting into this, and it's legitimate now. It's
our
defined,
backyard.
It is.
Well, yeah.
And it's close enough to my love of Scotch that I can get into this and have some fun.
But
Yeah.
this is where like a forum like this allows us to explore whiskey that we can't get in our region. So if you're in the Pacific Northwest, or if you're in the Midwest or Northeast, and you find a distillery that makes really good single malt whiskey, let us know so we can, contact them, get a bottle, and we can do some reviews on it and that kind of thing. Because each distillery we don't have access to in the Midwest that you might. And because it's region, we need your help.
Right. So cool, man.
Yep.
American single malt Scotch.
Cheers to that.
Scotch
Cheers
single
to
malt.
Good
Right.
stuff.
Anyway, we've got a lot of other things to get into. So
Yeah, we've
touch
already
base
been
with
going 45 minutes.
the comments and say, here's what's coming up next. We've got a trivia. Is it all around this topic, Drew?
It is.
Do you want to give everybody a break to pour something fresh before we get into breaking your brain on
Well,
a trivia question?
Well, we got to get our guest in here before.
Yeah,
because
let's get this
our
guy.
guest
He's
has
been
to be
sitting
part
there
of
for
the
45
trivia.
He might get called in on standby or something, and then what happens?
Yeah, and I actually want to get his take on our topic
Oh,
tonight
yeah.
because this guy we have
He's a
coming in,
sommelier.
This
man,
guy.
he is a knowledge of information because he's a whiskey sommelier.
He is a sommelier.
He's got all kinds of stuff. So let's, without further ado, grab our patron spotlight tonight and get him in here. There he is. Can you hear us, Martin?
Hello, Martin.
Martin.
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Good to see you, brother.
I'm doing great. How are y'all?
Good.
Not bad.
We're not
We got a
bad.
few whiskeys behind you.
Oh, a couple, Andrew.
wow.
Just a
Any
couple.
American single malts or?
Right now, I'm enjoying a Lost Lantern Andalusia.
Oh, yeah.
Andalusia.
Oh,
I know
Andalusia.
something about that distillery.
Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
Down in your neck of the woods, I think.
Yeah, I think we
Down
probably
in
will.
is it Blanco or Blanco? Did we figure that out?
You son of a gun.
Bringing back memories. So anyway, welcome to the show tonight, and thanks for coming on. You've been a patron and a supporter for a long time, Martin, and we want everybody who's watching to get to know Martin a little bit. So we obviously have a line of questions, but let's just start out with what got you into whiskey in general and Scotch whiskey. I mean, you're into more than just Scotch. You're kind of into a plethora of different whiskeys, and obviously you have a ton of whiskey behind you. So what got you to
Sure.
this point?
Well, I'll be honest. I was a wine and craft beer guy, right? Probably a lot of our listeners and people watching this can identify with that. But my neighbor was an orthopedic surgeon, and I'd go over to his house every day after work, and in the summers especially, he would have Scotch and soda. and he would have a handle of Johnny Walker Red.
Oof.
Right? He'd take his glass, ice, half Johnny Walker Red, half Schweppes Club Soda, and he would drink it. I would have my Modelo Especial, right? And so we would do that. So eventually I tried it. I'm like, it's not very sweet. And he goes, no, it's not sweet, you know? So I tried it. Pretty soon he's making 2 Scotch and sodas, one for me and one for him. And he said, hey, if you ever want to try this, go grab you a bottle of Single Malt. I tried it once. It wasn't for me. So I go down and I grab a bottle, and, you know, I'm looking, there's a lot of Glens. So I grab a Glenlivet 12 and then buy it and think, well, that's pretty good. So I start drinking Glenlivet 12, you know, usually over 3 ice cubes, right? Isn't that how you start, right?
Yep.
3 ice
That one.
cubes, right?
Is it 3 or is it 3?
No. Yeah, true.
There you go. Okay.
3.
Don't get shot.
Yeah.
So, West Side. So then I, one of my coworkers at the office, another a doc, he said, hey, if you're trying single malts, why don't you try this one? It's got a funny name and it's in a green bottle. So I'm like, okay. He said it tastes way different. And he said, but it's cool, you know. Something that looks a little like that.
Yeah,
I knew you were going there.
Forecast.
Yep.
It's a
So
little different than Glenlivet. Yeah.
Lefroy 10, that bottle is why all this is behind me, why I'm a whiskey sommelier, and why I found you guys. That Lefroy 10 blew my mind.
Yeah.
That's
How
amazing.
malted barley, water, yeast can make Johnny Walker Red, Glenlivet 12, and Lefroy 10, all by just different ways of making that. And I went down the rabbit hole, and here I am today.
It's been a fun journey for you, I can tell.
Oh, it's been amazing.
Guys, we've got questions lined up. It's the typical questionnaire for patron spotlight. So we're going to put you on the hot seat.
I'll go next.
You have it, my friend.
So, what is your most favorite or most memorable dram?
Gotcha.
Was it just that Lefroy 10, or do you have something that's like?
Boom.
So my most memorable dram, and if you guys are looking on YouTube at all, you see there's a picture of me holding a Glencairn up. I got to go to Scotland back in 2022, and we were up in the Speyside region, and we hired a guide to guide me and my wife, Hazel, and kind of drive us around Speyside. And she's kind of known for being a tour guide. So she takes us down. She goes, we're pulled up to just outside of Tamdhu. Okay. And she walks us down, and I'm like, where are we going? So we walk down to the River Spey, the actual River Spey. And we're standing there on the banks of the River Spey, and she pours me a Tamdhu 15.
Oh man.
My friends, they're just, it's amazing. That's maybe not the best dram I've ever had, but that time, that moment, you hear the rushing waters, the River Spey. I'm in Speyside, and then she's telling me all about Tamdhu. That's a memorable moment for
And
me.
she earned her tip for that tour. Right? You took
She
out
got
your
quite a-
cash and you just handed it
She
to
got
her.
quite a good tip. Yeah, that's
took a
right.
whole
She did a great job. She did a great job.
Right. I'm sure she had somebody that she paid out there in the river in hip waders, catching up,
Catching a trout, whoa, look at that.
That's
As
right.
soon as they take
That's
a sip,
right.
They hook the trout. Yeah.
That's right.
Timing is everything.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that was a cool question. Drew, you're up next, but you're driving. What are you doing? Texting somebody?
I'm working on audio stuff. Keep going.
Okay, so pull up the questions
how's
so
that
that Sean
working
can
out for
take
you?
over.
Yeah, great.
Actually, that's a good question. What's the most surprising or interesting thing you've learned about whiskey since starting your journey?
Well, so one of my in my whiskey journey, like I said, I went down to become a whiskey sommelier at the Wizard Academy down in Austin, Texas. If you guys don't know, the Wizard Academy started by Daniel Whittington. They do whiskey education, and so they kind of make this funny thing. You get this big Flavor Flav medal, right, around there. But one of the things I learned was the very first Consumer Protection Act in America, right? In America, where we got consumer protection against, the selling of, abnormal products or products that false identification, was whiskey. It's the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897. That's the very first Consumer Protection Act in America, and that happened to do with whiskey. So I'm very proud of that.
And that was a good one. We needed that.
I was going to say, I just learned something, right? That's now my answer, right? Cool. Thank you, Drew. Let's see. How did you, Martin? We've been together a while now. You've been around the channel, but how did you actually discover Scotch for Dummies? Was it through another channel? Was it just blind luck?
It's interesting. Actually, I found you guys from the podcast. So Drew would publish you guys' videos on the podcast. So I would drive back and forth. I'm in a little town in East Texas called Sulphur Springs. And our little hospital that I work in, we have a parent hospital down in Tyler. And I'm our hospital's chief medical officer. So I'd have to drive down to Tyler for meetings every now and then. And I wanted to find a whiskey podcast that I could listen to driving back and forth. So I would go through the various whiskey and there's the Whiskey Cast, which is the news podcast. Well, that's fine. But I wanted just to hear some people talking about whiskey. So I came across this Scotch for Dummies. And I thought, well, that's perfect. I'm just learning about Scotch. And there's these four morons just sitting there talking, about
dummies,
whiskey.
Not morons.
Oh, sorry, dummies about Scotch whiskey. So I found you guys off of the podcast, and then I found the YouTube channel, and then the Patreons. And one day I just I joined the Patreon and popped on the Zoom and talked to you guys, and that's that.
Now you're part of the community.
The rest is history.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you're like, you can never leave member of the community, right?
Absolutely.
All right,
I'm in.
Andrew, bring us home.
In for life.
So yes, this is kind of a wish question. What is your white whale? What bottle of whiskey do you want that you have been unable to obtain, that you've been kind of chasing for a long time?
Sure. So I want a birth year whiskey.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that's one of those things a lot of us have. I know, Mark, I think you've got one, right?
Got one, yeah.
I do. It's not a Scotch, but it's a whiskey.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. I was born in 1969, right?
Oh, good luck.
Exactly. So I patrol the auctions, and those whiskeys cost a little money. So I'm waiting for the right one at the right time, at the right price to get a whiskey distilled in 1969. So.
Yeah, birthday whiskey, that is a white whale for a lot of people. Yeah.
The problem is, Martin, the longer it takes, the longer it's going to take, right? The more the price goes up, you're fighting time, brother.
I should have been looking for this 20 years ago. So.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Well, are there any more questions? Drew, you've been working on technical problems. Why don't you?
I think we're actually in a decent spot right now. But so Martin, we've known each other for a while, but what else are you into besides whiskey?
Setting him up. Wow, man, what a softball.
He's got one thing.
Or should we say
total softball? Total. So, as many of you know that are watching this, I'm into pickleball quite a bit. Started playing pickleball about this time last year. And as you can tell by the whiskey bottles behind me, once I get into something, I really get into something. So
yeah,
I have an Instagram page called Whiskey Dink, right? So dinking is a term that applies to pickleball. So it's kind of a play on words, and I'll let you kind of figure out where we're playing on that. But so I get into whiskey paddles about as much as I get into whiskey bottles at this point in time. So I'm big into pickleball.
Nice.
I gotta say, thanks for explaining where the name came from, because I was like, I don't know if that's a typo or what's going on with Martin, but I'm gonna let it go, man.
When I think of Dick, I think dual income, no kids, but that doesn't work. So I don't know how that works.
You know, yeah, my kids would wonder exactly,
Yeah.
where they fit into that. So
I got another question for you, Barton. So back to whiskey. So we've known you for quite some time, and you're very generous, and you're very knowledgeable, and you're always sharing. In fact, our first bottle, honestly, is because of you and your craftsmanship and negotiations and networking.
Yep.
But I'm curious. You're also very much in love with a lot of new distilleries, and you're good. You're
Absolutely.
usually on the front line of kind of marketing for them.
Yep.
If you had your choice right now, and I said the sky's the limit, what would you bottle? Who would you go to and say, I want a bottle of your whiskey right now?
wow, that's a great one. So I, and not to jump on a bandwagon that a lot of people have, but okay, Scotch is my favorite, right? I think that's we all share that in common. But these new distilleries that are popping up in Scotland just have such a great opportunity.
Totally.
So Ardnamurchan and Razzie and Lag and some of those Western Scottish Island and Western Coast just have a fantastic approach to bottling. And so if I wanted to go grab a cask, those are probably three of the ones I would go jump all
Totally.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Couldn't
hear
agree
you.
more. Couldn't agree more. They're doing some amazing stuff right now.
They
Actually,
really are.
we've got a bottle of one of those distilleries that you left with us. I think a Rossi right here
Yeah.
on the bar. That's it. On the back, it's you put your little sticker on it.
A little
Martin, right?
sticker.
And we're like,
That
oh,
one.
shit,
That
Martin gave us
one's.
this.
That was their first release. That one's a little bit rough. A little young. It's a little
It is
young, but
young.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah. Well, Martin, first of all, thank you for being a patron, a supporter, a friend.
Yep.
You really do bring a lot of knowledge. You're always out there in the front. You speak wonderfully. I know you do a lot of tasting events and stuff in your local club that you have, and there's a lot to be learned from you, and we really appreciate your support and you just being a part of the community because we all learn from it. So, couldn't say thank you enough to you, my friend, and. That's it for me. If you guys want to say anything.
Thank you, Martin.
We appreciate you.
We really do.
I appreciate you guys so much. The community that you guys have built, the people that are in the chat right now, the people that are your patrons, the people that follow you on YouTube, your thousands of followers on YouTube, just really speak to the community that you guys build. The four guys living on the same street that just got into Scotch. Look what you built. And this is amazing. So I'm some dude sitting in right now in my cellar in Sulphur Springs, Texas, that gets a chance to communicate with you guys, with you, with Chuck in Oregon and Chad in Canada and Bob in New Jersey. You give us guys an opportunity for all of us to get together, and that's just fantastic.
That's a wonderful support from a friend and a patron in general to show that honestly it's been all organic, and we've been blessed with the community that we have built. Because to your point, the people you mentioned, I obviously have a lot of good heart feelings for them, and there's so many good people we have found. It's so tight knit, and Tim was over here earlier. He's a good friend of mine, a newer patron of ours, and he's more of a bourbon guy. And he's been joining the Zooms, and I'm sure he's listening right now on his replay tomorrow because he's asleep right now. Gets up really early. But Tim, if you're listening, I've told him today. I'm like, you need to talk to people in the Discord in our community, because there are so many people that all you got to say is, "Hey, I like to learn more about this."
Boom.
And you just got 10 people saying, "Hey, when do you want to talk?"
That are experts.
They'll talk to you, send you samples, wherever you want, and that's what's cool about our community. I know there's a bunch of more communities out there, but we're blessed with the community we have because they're faithful. There are so many knowledgeable people, more knowledgeable than us. And the fact that we can tap into that, there's no questions that can be unturned.
Well, and we're better because the community's there, because we're learning from the community as well, because you have regional whiskeys, you have different flavor palettes. When we first started Scotch for Dummies, we would go to like whiskey events and we'd meet people and they're like, "Man, can I move in next to you?" Because like if they live in a community that doesn't have, we were lucky that the four of us were on the same
Right.
street, and you don't have that. So on YouTube, we were able to do that for other people that are maybe a little more isolated, that can create that community. And now on Discord and YouTube and all this, you can do that. So that's kind of why we got into it, to allow others to have that same ability.
Well, what do you say we test this sommelier and
Oh,
see
yeah.
how his whiskey
Yeah,
knowledge
good
is?
luck.
Hang on a second.
dude.
I did pour a Lafroig 10 in your honor, right?
Nice, nice.
It's cast strength.
The birth of Martin.
That, not because you
Lafroig
like
will
it, right?
always be special to me because of that. Always be special.
Well, cheers, brother.
Now, I will say this. On my trip to Scotland, I did get to go, I did a special tour at Lafroig and got to drink water from the water source of Lafroig. And so if anybody ever gets the chance, you got to do that. It's amazing.
Was it like Band-Aids, the water?
Bog.
Bog water. Ugh.
It's a little
A
stagnant.
little
You
bit.
got to brush stuff out of the way.
So let's just see how smart this educated whiskey sommelier is with these questions.
I'm a little nervous about this one. I'm not going to lie.
It is
beat
no
the
joke.
sommelier, beat the patron here. All
I
right.
think he's
we
going to
go.
be just fine.
Do we have the app this time? Or is
No,
it
it's just all online. You
All
use a chat to answer. It's just a simple version. This is based off tonight's topic. So there are some pretty good gimmies for most people, but there are some tough ones in here
I
as
don't know
well.
if I'm
So
gonna
see if
get
you
any.
pay attention, and we'll go from here. All right, so let's get into this. The first question.
Which of the following statements about American single malt whiskey is true? It must be distilled in a single U.S. state. It must be made from 100% malted barley. It must be aged for a minimum of 3 years, and it must be distilled in pot stills.
I think A is the answer.
I watched the show tonight. I was part of it. I know the answer to that one.
Well, there's a couple of them.
Yeah.
No.
What do you think, Martin?
No.
I definitely know B is true.
Yes. That's
So
what I'm
which
going,
of
I'm going
them?
with B.
Yep.
Is there more than one answer for this one? Is there more than one right?
Which of the following statements? So it could be more than one?
It could be
Well,
more than
son
one.
of a tricky dicky.
Pick which one you
I
like.
I
Got a
know
lot of
B is
Bs.
true.
You got a lot of B's.
What if it's straight?
Well, no, I know C's not. I don't. D's my question mark, and I don't think that that's true either. So I'm sticking with B. I'm going with
Yep.
I'm going Martin.
Well, the question for me is, how do you distill it in more than one state?
That's a
Well,
very
Right on the
difficult-
line, so
You
the
just-
lie arm runs
you
across.
like, hey, can I borrow some
That
sugar?
would be badass. Nothing like.
I guess if
breaking
you're
rules.
right
You know
on
how
the
many
border,
like excise
Hot
officers
dog
in
is
two
like,
states would just have a heart attack if you tried to do that?
Right. What the hell are you doing?
The still is in one state, the receiver is in another state. Like, I don't know
His taxes on
technically that
that
could
is
happen.
incredible.
That's right.
So what did the answer?
All right, the answer is
We're going B.
B.
There you go.
Genius.
Yeah. So-
I mean,
So column stills are legal if we need to make a bunch.
yeah.
True.
There we go.
So
It is.
there's no technically age requirement yet. We talked about that, but
Mhm.
it must be made from 100% malted barley,
That's key.
unlike bourbon and rye.
Which have to be more than 51%
Yeah.
corn. So, all right.
Oh hell.
Sean, this one's you, buddy.
Which American region is most similar to Speyside in terms of whiskey flavor profile?
Oh, you had to be paying attention earlier.
A, Texas, B, California, C, the Pacific Northwest, or D, Colorado? I think I actually remember this one.
I don't
I
remember,
this one
actually.
from the conversation. Was Martin paying attention?
He's
He
going with
said-
C.
That's what I was
Said
going with.
C. He's giving the hand signal too.
It's backwards, but that's okay.
Yeah, it was backwards.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you go.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You're also backwards.
I don't know. He's making me nervous. He delivers babies.
Ah,
Well, that's how he catches them.
it's fine.
All right. What's the answer?
Well, you have to wait for the
Oh,
delay to catch
okay,
up.
so a lot
Get
of-
time.
Oh yeah, there's a
20
20-second
seconds.
delay. Yeah,
There's
so
a lot
we
of
got a
C's
delay.
coming through the chat, which is good.
A lot of C sections coming through the chat.
C
Martin.
sections are coming through. Let's see what the answer is.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's very good.
That's
There we go.
correct.
Martin's
That's
2
correct.
for 2.
He is.
Who's keeping
All right,
score?
Mark.
All right, Mark.
Which of these U.S. distillery sources its peated malt directly from Scotland?
Ooh.
Ooh, that's a tough one. It was
Yeah,
not
tough
in tonight's
No,
No, it's
conversation.
not.
Which of these U.S. distilleries sources its peated malt directly from Scotland? McCarthy's, B, Virginia Distillery Company, C, Balcones, or D, St. George Spirits?
I don't know. I had that last one D
I
before.
think I know this, but we'll see.
Martin?
What's your view, Martin?
So I thought 2 of these did. So I guess I'm going to have to go with that. But I'm going to go with A.
You're going to go with A. Okay. McCarthy's.
I'm
Okay.
seeing a lot of A's.
We're seeing
in
a
the
lot of
comments.
A's in the comments so far coming up.
I was going to say A, but I don't know a damn thing about D. That's what scares me.
I don't know anything about D. We've got to get a bottle.
Well, see, I was thinking A and C, but I'm going to go with
A and
A
C.
for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that
Balcones.
C. I don't know that Balcones has done that, honestly.
No, I don't know if they have. It's on the bottom.
They
It's on
have
the
peat.
bottle.
They definitely have peated. They have peated
Yeah.
whiskey. So
They do? Okay. So we just checked for sure, but yeah, the answer
Yeah,
is
that-
it's on the
definitely-
back of the bottle.
Definitely McCarthy's does. They have peated.
we had
yeah,
Scotch.
definitely
Loud and
McCarthy's
proud.
Loud and
You
proud.
guys can zoom in. It says it right here.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I'll do this one. What is a key factor that causes Texas whiskey to age faster than Scotch?
We take a Scotch.
A, higher altitude. B, the use of smaller barrels. C, the hot climate accelerates aging. Or D, a higher proof distillation. We didn't talk about that.
You gonna open that?
Why not?
What? I just poured. Okay.
You
So-
mentioned a little bit about the
So-
proofing.
Because we got another one too. Martin, what is your view on this one? You're from Texas. You're a Texas guy.
As somebody who lives in Texas, I'm going to go with C.
Because the hot climate.
Not the high altitude.
Come on. Are you sure?
As I pour,
is that
as I
final
pour my
answer?
Cataleja right here.
You don't want to phone a friend?
I think they
No,
use
sir.
smaller barrels.
Yeah, it's.
Tiny
Who
barrels.
wrote these questions?
Tiny.
Okay.
I'm machine learning.
We
Yeah.
don't use anything smaller in Texas, don't you know?
That's correct.
Exactly.
A taco truck. Okay, answer is duh.
C.
Hot climate. It
Yeah.
cooks it. Cooks those casks.
It cooks it real fast.
Yep.
Real fast. All right.
I'm feeling good about this quiz all of a sudden.
I am too.
All right, is it me?
It's
Yep.
you.
Which of the following American distilleries is known for producing peated single malts? Westland, B. Balcones, C. Stranahan's, or D. St. George?
This is kind of a combo from last question, a couple questions ago.
That's interesting because.
So 2 of these have peated single malts.
But which one is known for it? That's why that caught me off guard too. Martin.
So describe that to us, Martin.
So
what do you
Westland and
mean?
Balcones both have peated single malt production.
Yes.
Okay. But which?
So I'd probably say Westland's more known for it because they're up there in Washington and they actually have local peat there. They're solemn. They use peat from Washington State. So they're probably more of a known. But Balcones has a wonderful peated single malt.
It's interesting because I think we talked to them before and they did say that they have, it's not for mass consumption, but they do
Right.
have a special little peat area that they're using in
They
certain.
do have a peat bog in Washington.
Yeah.
They're drawing from, but Balcones does more than just American single malts.
Mhm.
They do bourbons.
They do bourbons, ryes, and rums, but their single malt is their primary their product, and that's why Diageo bought
Okay.
it.
Well, everyone is on the A bandwagon, it seems. So let's see what the answer is. Oh!
Dang.
So-
Drew Bill throwing a curveball.
And that brought up the question is, Westland has put some peat down, but they don't normally produce peated whiskey. They put some
Well,
peated, peated
I would argue both Westland and Balcones, most of
You're
their
right.
single malt is not
I
peated.
gotta have a glass of that.
No kidding.
Oh, wait a second.
We just
So-
poured some of this.
I gotta do a
Martin.
timeout.
Was it in dairy
Gosh
single
damn it.
cask?
Yeah, I don't know.
Made
Oh my-
with 6-row barley.
So
No kidding. This
last
says
time
it
I
on
was
the
down at
label.
the Storied Company, Martin, I went to pick up a bunch of whiskeys that I had ordered for myself through a period of time, and I always look and see what they got. And Dennis had this Injury single cask, and I don't know if you can see it, but I mean, it's
Oh,
just
nice.
It's like
black.
it's like coffee.
It looks like red
and
wine.
so I had to buy it, and Drew just opened it and poured something. I know we're not talking about Indian whiskeys or anything, but I'm gonna have to rinse this peated glass
Man.
out and have a glass of this
The
because
nose is a punch of vanillas and toffees and butterscotch. It's crazy.
So do you guys
have
know
to-
where the first time I had injury was?
uh-uh.
Sitting right there where Mark and Andrew is sitting.
Oh, you have been here.
And that's the first time I had injury. It was great.
Yeah,
That's good.
It's good stuff.
it is.
All right.
This
All
one's
right,
crazy.
on to the next question. Is this me?
Mhm.
What
Sure.
unique characteristic do lowland scotches and California American single
this is your
malts
question.
share?
Hmm.
Heavy peat influence, delicate floral and fruit-forward flavors, aged only in wine barrels, or always triple distilled?
Fruity.
Oh, this is kind of easy.
Yeah.
You think it?
That's a
That's
B.
unfair.
That's a B.
Well,
I gotta go with Martin on this one. I'm going with the doc.
what's the doc
B?
say?
He said B.
B.
He said bravo.
It's
B.
in California. It's fruity.
Lightly smoked.
It's fruity.
Right, bravo.
Yeah.
It's heavy peat influence.
Did he say
It's,
pickle?
it's skunk scent influenced in California.
Skunk.
I guess that's floral technically, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah, everyone's on the B bandwagon. This is
Everybody's
a
on the
pretty
B.
easy one.
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. That was a good one. Okay.
All right. Which Scotch region was nearly extinct until modern demand revived it?
Ooh.
Ooh, back to this is a new one.
Oh,
So A,
I know it.
Islay, B, Lowland, C, Campbelltown, or D, Highlands. There's a couple there that were.
Yeah.
There's
Kinda
actually, this
shady.
is a little trickier than I thought. There's two.
He's got the C going on, so he's thinking Campbelltown. I don't know.
That
It could be Lowlands.
That would be my vote, but the lowlands got down pretty low as
It got
well. but-
real low.
Honestly, the only thing that really that saved lowlands was the grain whiskey market.
It is, yeah. Now,
But
Campbelltown used to be like the beginning of the most popular place for it.
That's where a
It
lot
was-
of distilleries
it
started.
was-
It was.
known
It
as
was the biggest.
whiskey capital of the
It
world.
was
Right.
the biggest.
Yeah.
So Martin, do you remember what revived your choice? C.
Well, the C, right? Originally, they dropped off because they didn't have good railroads to the to
Mhm.
the area, and Speyside did, and that's what dropped Campbellton down and Speyside up because they had the railroad coverage.
From what I understand, Campbelltown. Well, so let's get an answer and we could go. through.
People are actually saying B and C, so
Yeah.
it's a combo,
It's
which we
tough.
figured. Yeah, Campbelltown is
Yeah.
correct.
Once home to 30 distilleries. 30.
Yeah, so there was what was the story that it to be a region you had to have at least 3 distilleries,
3.
and Springbank opened Glen Scotia or Hazelburn or whatever, one of those
Glengyle.
opened a second
Long
distillery across the road to create
That's right.
3 to keep
That's
it as
right.
a region.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
they
they
had to go
opened
up in Glengyle. They had to go up in Glengyle Distillery
Glengyle.
to make
Yep.
Which makes
Kilcarran.
Kilcarran.
Yeah.
Yeah. They opened Glengyle to make
That-
enough distilleries.
That's dedication.
That is, yeah.
Yeah. Those are heroes in my
But it
book.
seems
Hell
like
yeah.
there's a few, but even Glenn Grant did it a couple times. So, all right,
Hmm.
go ahead, Sean.
All right. Question 8. What is a key difference between American single malts and single malt Scotch? A. American single malts but must be made with corn. B. Scotch is aged in new American oak barrels. C. American single malts have more freedom in barrel selection. Or D. Scotch must be distilled more than 3 times.
If anyone picks A,
You're a moron.
just disconnect.
You go home. Go home.
You're
Get
more
off
dumb
the
than we are. No.
So this is like a SAT test where if you don't know, you just guess C.
Always pick C.
I always pick C.
What is your name?
Is this a trick question?
So he's picking C's. We got C for the.
We do that every.
Someday.
Are they all?
I don't know.
He's got an app that does this.
C is correct. American single malts have the freedom in barrel selection, and you talked about that earlier today.
Yep. Typically, yeah, because you can have new oak. You can, and I don't think Scotch is allowed to typically go in new oak, but
No,
they use.
No, you can. You can. Virgin oak, right? So virgin
Virgin oak.
Yeah,
They
you
can,
Right.
yeah.
You can.
Well,
It's just not as popular, or in the United States right now. It's still, the access to
Correct.
new oak is much more prevalent, and they are more experimental. In Scotland, most of the distillers that are doing new oak are virgin oak, if you will. They're few and far between, and they're careful
one-
with it. Because you can.
This one's in
over-oak it quick.
Andalusia in virgin oak. This
Yeah.
Lost Land.
right.
well, that's multiple years. All right. Next one. Who's that?
I don't know. I'll
Go for it.
All right. Which American whiskey region has a climate similar to the Scottish Highlands, allowing for a slower aging? A, Texas, B, Pacific Northwest, C, Colorado, or D, Florida. Actually, that's Florida. Excuse me.
Florida.
Yeah, this one's tough.
I can't see him. He's giving hand signals.
What's he saying? He's saying
giving
C.
hand
Is it all been C?
Yeah.
Oh, well, not all of them, but most. Yeah.
It's tricky. Drew's trying to be tricky.
I'm not being tricky. It's not.
Pacific Northwest.
Oh, snap.
OMG. That's not
Okay.
what we said in our.
It's not.
It was Colorado.
You
wasn't
call
it?
the Highlands Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta tip the nod to Martin on this. 'Cause otherwise, we're
You
hip
pay
for that.
attention.
Otherwise, I mean,
I'm pretty sure it was C.
I feel like a college professor now. I told you what the answer was, and then when you selected that answer, I told you were wrong.
That's how you beat down the smart kids, right?
Exactly.
Right. That's right.
Nobody gets 100% in my class. Oh my God.
Oh, Mark.
That's why there's a curve.
All right, last question.
Which of these American single malt distilleries has released a whiskey finished in ex-Sauternes cask? So Virginia Distillery, Balcones, Westland, and Stranahan.
Shit, this is tough.
Sauternes cask.
That's tough.
Martin?
I'm going to go A.
It's going to go A. All right. You going C?
I'm saying C.
I'm saying
We got
C.
a lot of C's in the chat so far.
I'm saying
Yeah.
C.
B's. This is going to be the tricky one.
Sauternes.
This is one where everybody fails. I'm hoping for the curve.
Ooh.
I think A.
Tough for work. I feel attacked. Sorry, Professor. I almost called you out,
Hey,
actually.
prof.
Here we go. Here comes the answers. B, 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 A. Most people think Balcones. What do you got? What do you
I
guys
think
think?
A,
You
'cause
think
that-
A? Mark?
I don't
I
know.
said Westland. I said C.
What do you got?
I said C.
You said C. I'm gonna go with A.
With the answer? Oh, yes!
Put it together, you cheater.
I didn't know that.
Well, I did that also on purpose because of
Oh, are we going into something?
we
Oh,
are.
shit.
So this is actually a really good, you know.
Need some
We'll get
I
translation.
think I
We'll get
have
that in a
one,
second.
actually.
Yeah, we'll get. So
So
Martin,
that doesn't surprise me because when I think of Virginia Distillery, they've got a good base and it's a lighter whiskey. Sauternes would be great with that. With Balcones, I think
Let's
it's
move these other way.
maybe too heavy. Again, Westland and Stranahan's it will be the same. They got a heavier whiskey.
Yeah, that is true. I was
So-
thinking access to Sauternes casks.
That is tricky. Yeah.
Not too many Sauternes casts out there, are there?
Not generally.
do we have any?
Virginia
wheel
does a
spins?
lot of
We do.
stuff.
That's
They
next.
really do. They have the cuvee. They've got their different wine casks. They do quite a bit. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna get back to them to close the show here in a little bit. But I don't know. What'd you end up with, Martin? 8 out of 10 there. Did you pass?
I definitely passed. I think the only one I missed was the one that you got wrong. So
I think you get 9 out of 10.
The one you got
Well,
wrong.
you know, Martin.
I think I got
you
10
know,
out of 10 because you gave the wrong answer to one of the questions.
Hey,
All right,
what,
that's
what do they
fair.
call that? What
That's
do they call
fair.
a guy that graduated last in his medical class?
Doctor.
MD, baby.
MD.
They say
Martin-
C equals MD, right?
That's right. Well, listen, if you
Oh,
want, stay on in the back room. We'll chat with you after the show for a few. But thanks for being our guest tonight. Great to get to know you. Great to share your information with everyone.
Thanks for sharing.
Raise a glass
Martin.
to you, sir.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
All right. That was
Before we
interesting.
get to the wheel spin, guys, we got to talk about this for a hot second. We poured this. This is one cloying glass. I mean, it
It is
dries
super-
my mouth
It's a
out.
punch.
super
yeah,
dry.
It's a punch.
It's so dry.
We're gonna have to get different glasses because I'm not gonna slam that down
No, I'm not either.
for our.
If we're doing
No.
Oh
if we're
yeah,
doing another
absolutely.
one.
Yeah,
This
go
is.
So we're gonna do a giveaway. How many
Oof.
bottles? How many?
I want to give it. I want to actually give it.
All right. Grab 2 more
Yeah.
bottles.
Okay. Well,
What are we doing tonight? How about that with the Lost Lantern? I want to do that one.
And then McCarthy's.
Yeah.
That McCarthy's peated. because it's a peated American single malt. So,
Yeah, there you
and
go.
then we're gonna throw the curveball in, which is an Indian whiskey. We just opened it. Whoever wins this is gonna be
It's
blown away.
ridiculous.
It's a single cask. It's probably not readily available. Somebody might find a little bit of it. There were 6 row barley, which is interesting. I was trying to find how many bottles,
Really
but it's I can't tell if that's a 4 or a 9. I want to assume it's a 4 being in India, but it might be 9 years. Man, is it 58.5? It's a humdinger.
All right, so for the first one, which one are you doing first? What's the order
Eeny,
here?
meeny, miny, go. Let's do our what we talked about today. Let's do a couple American single malts. We've got a Lost Lantern Gentle Giant,
Delicious.
which is
Both of
from Balcones,
Both of these are delicious.
and that's
All right.
what we're giving away right now.
Okay.
Well, let's see who the winner is for the first one of our patrons.
Ooh, that's going fast. That's going real super
Real
fast.
fast. Ooh, Wheelhouse
Wheelhouse.
Whiskey.
You'd rather have that in you.
Yeah, you would.
He'll like this one.
He'll
Yeah.
like this. Balcones to Wheelhouse.
All right.
Next up, McCarthy's Peated. This is a peated American single malt.
Delicious.
It is very
Delicious.
well done.
All right. Bourbon
Bourbon
Prepper.
Man, Bobby J's got me that.
Yeah, right there.
All right, Bourbon Prepper, you're on the hot seat for McCarthy's Peated. And then the last one is the surprise that Drew just couldn't resist and open an Indian Injury Whiskey. It is a single
Man.
cask number
Interesting.
3195, X red wine, bottle
That's what
number
that is.
34.
Red
It
wine,
doesn't tell me
yeah.
out of how many. It's 58.5%, and I really can't tell if that's a 4 or a 9. The font
9.
is, you think it's got to be
It's a
4.
9.
Yeah, I say it's a 9 too. 6 row barley. This is an interesting whiskey. Whoever gets it's gonna
That's a
have fun with
punch
it.
in the face.
What's the
man.
red wine, Mad Dog? It's a big one.
Oh.
There we go.
That's the perfect person to give it to you.
He's gonna love it. Awesome.
All right.
All right, everyone. Congratulations.
All right, very
So
Nice.
I'll
Good.
pour those after this
Ooh,
show.
put some water on it.
Yeah, it helps.
Yes.
It needs it, huh?
Yeah,
it's
it needs some
really
water.
good with water.
all right, so how do we want
Wow.
to close this out?
Well, we
What
got.
are you grabbing over there, Mark?
If anybody was paying attention to the shelves back there, they might know, but I was hoping to block some of that.
Oh, is it on the shelf?
We just
we
grabbed
had,
it.
We had both of them. I don't know if they could see it, but so obviously those patrons that have been with us for a while know that we put an American single malt out from Andalusia not too long ago. She's gone but not forgotten. Loved it. It was great. But in the meantime, we were working on a second bottle from a different distillery. That's kind of our goal, to go around and hit some of these other American single malt distilleries. And we met with the Virginia Distilling Company, and we gave them a different charge. We wanted an American single malt that was clean. In other words, no finishes, just ex-bourbon. We want to taste your American single malt whiskey and show us what American single malt can be. And Virginia Distilling Company stepped up and did just that.
We
And
found a banger.
it's been
Look.
bottled, kids.
There we go.
There it is.
Courage
So-
and Conviction, American Single Malt. And then, so look at that. You get a little
You get
S4D
your little
coin
magnet.
on there.
It's just like all their other bottles. There's a Scotch for Dummies coin on the front.
And it's got Shredder's coin on the back.
And it's a Scotch for Dummies sticker coin in the back.
Yeah, that matches.
We're,
But
we're branding all our labels now and stickers that match the bottles.
Yep.
so this is cask number 6333. It is 60.7% ABV. So we did put it at cask strength. It really is delicious, and they really showcase what they can do.
Yeah, we need new glasses.
We've got they sent us 2 bottles so that we can get started on promoting it a little bit and get going. But in the very near future, and I say as of today, Thursday, next Thursday on the live show, we hope to have Amanda, the master blender from
Hopefully.
Virginia Distilling Company, on instead of a patron, to talk about the distillery and this bottle particularly. We will be reaching out to our patrons.
Can I peel the label?
Yeah, open
Yeah.
that sucker up. Let's taste it.
I'm
I wonder
excited.
what Mark
I-
was doing.
I don't know.
Yeah,
what's
like
going on.
he just like fondling it. I'm like, what the
Ah,
fuck, dude?
it's so
Chatting
nice.
away, man.
got-
Let's
oh, you
have a
got 4?
glass.
So our first bottle, Andalusia, was a whopper. It's
Banger.
a
It's a
big
banger.
banger, as Andrew
That
was saying.
chocolate
Actually, we
malt
do
was
need that.
delicious.
It's still delicious every time I have a glass. This one, to Mark's point about finding, give me your distillate, give me your ex-bourbon. And I remember when we all first tasted a sample of this one. How long ago was
After
that,
the
Sean?
Inderi, it's gonna be tough.
It's
But
been
Shoes,
6 months?
yeah, probably
yeah, it
We
was
were
October.
blown away.
So.
September, October.
I'm so excited to have a glass of this right now because this one,
I
to
honestly
me,
don't remember.
I don't either now.
What we got.
I'm excited because this one to me was like the heartbeat of what American Single Malt
Right.
is.
Now I remember it.
Yep.
How you doing?
So Amanda will be on the show next week, hopefully. And then we are also planning a trip to the distillery on, I want to say March 1st, that Saturday. Between now and March 1st, we will have the URL for the bottle out to our patrons. So patrons that are interested in purchasing this bottle, the URL will be sent to you. And we're going to hold some bottles back at the distillery for any of the patrons that come to the event. But we're going to have a good time. So it's obviously a patron, centered event and opportunity, because that's what we're doing this for. These bottles are for our patrons. So you're going to want to try this one, and
really
we're
good.
super stoked. There'll be a lot more information coming out. This is just kind of a teaser, and we had to open it just to.
It's
Yeah.
delicious, man.
We're
It's
super
hot.
excited
I had
about
forgotten.
this
It needs a little water. I'll tell you, it needs a little water.
I don't know, man.
I gotta let it open up a little bit.
one. Let's have a moment of silence. Oh my goodness.
So being light floral, linen, clean flavors coming out, clean nose.
Don't even talk about it.
No, sorry, I was talking over that silence.
That's really good. Really, really good.
Super proud of this. Super proud of this. Delicious.
Very different from the last bottle,
Completely different.
but I really
Wow.
like that we went with just like a clean, no cask finishings. Let's see what this can actually be. It's very, very nice.
And
Good job.
The thing that we liked about this is their distillate is so good that's what we wanted to showcase here.
Good Lord.
There are a few American single malt distillers that are doing great distillate now, and this is one of those. So we went basically the other end of the pendulum for this one. This is like distillate,
right.
ex-bourbon, let's go.
If I remember right, they were excited that was what
Yeah.
we
Amanda
wanted to
was
do, right?
stoked. And she was. I mean, because with the Andalusia, we went with this deep, heavy chocolate malt that we weren't looking for. It just it reached out and grabbed us, and it was awesome. And everybody that's had a bottle has said the same.
Oh my
so this
God.
is literally, like Andrew said, the opposite end of the spectrum. And Amanda was excited. And I got word from somebody that went to the Bastards Ball. Maybe it might have been Mark, somebody that went down there that ran into Amanda that said, and he relayed the same message, how excited she was that we wanted to just get a clean distillate American single malt for them. No, bells and whistles. No,
Nope.
You're not hiding behind anything. You're showing us what you can do and who you are.
I'm telling you right now, this has the same, right now, this exact moment I have when we had it 6 months ago. The excitement I have for this being American single malt, for what it is, to what I love about Scotch. You guys, patrons, you're going to freaking love this. It's so freaking
It's like
good.
vanilla cream and light sweetness.
It's-
No elbows, no angular. It's just
It's unbelievable.
But somehow rich.
it
There's
is.
It's
And
so
it's
good.
what there's not an age on it, so we don't. It's not that old. don't
I
remember what the
equate
age
this
was.
to like really, really good vanilla ice cream, right?
Vanilla
like,
bean ice cream.
Because you can have like some
Yes.
generic vanilla ice
Oh.
cream and it's kind of crap, and then you get like the real deal with like
Yeah.
vanilla bean, like real vanilla bean in it, and you're like, oh, that's why
That's what
I
it's
love
supposed to
this,
taste
It's
right?
like Breyers
And
versus,
this is like that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it doesn't need bells and whistles. It's just really, really good.
you
It's a
guys
good
are so
whiskey.
good.
Agreed.
Yeah, excited, super excited. More to come to the patrons. You guys keep an eye on Patreon posts and stuff and announcements that are coming out. But it's obviously in the very,
Man.
very
So
near future. 'cause
not
it's in
only
front of
are
us.
we having the bottle coming out to patrons next week, but the distillery tour that we're doing, hopefully we're saying in March.
Yeah,
March
sometime-
1st.
Yeah.
March 1st.
Yeah.
We're picking hopefully another barrel. So
Yeah.
If
So if
you're-
you're
if-
there,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
help pick it.
Patrons that show up to the event, you're part of the pick.
and the goal is I got to work on a label design, but patrons that show up, your name's going on the bottle.
We're gonna figure out a way to
nice.
make.
Shoot,
Yeah,
that's
we're
cool.
gonna, whoever is part of the picking process, which
Maybe
it'll
on
be a
the
fun
coin.
time.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway, stay tuned for that. This was the sneak peek for all the patrons that got that message today. We were excited when these showed up this week, and we had to share it with you guys because it's definitely in the very, very, very near future. And to talk about yet another opportunity, we came on a selection on
did.
another bottle from another distillery tonight. We've gone
Yeah.
through samples from this distillery. This is our second round of samples from them. And there was a very clear.
We found a
winner,
banger.
We got a banger.
So again,
of
the
a
pendulum's
whiskey.
It's
swinging back.
ridiculous.
It's going the opposite
It's
side.
a banger.
Our
It's really
next
good.
our next bottle is the exact opposite of this. It was the challenge is show us what you can do with an American single malt. You can make good single malt, and show us what you can do with it once you've made it. And this one stretches the boundaries and goes out there, and it's freaking killer.
I think
Yep.
going back just to the beginning of the show about American Single Malt being the next big hit. This excites me.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really does. To what we talked about, this bottle, the sample we talked about earlier tonight. I mean, the future
This
is
is really
bright.
good.
The future is really bright.
Yeah.
So very excited. Guys, great show. Mark, good show
Fun
tonight.
time.
Good topic.
Good time.
Hopefully next week we'll have a full show on this and talk about it more.
It's a ticket.
It's a
All right.
ticket.
Put it away.
Why are you
Hey,
putting it away?
Cause man, we gotta say. All right, you guys.
That's what the second bottle's for.
Yeah, we
That's
do have
right.
two. Everybody, thanks for joining tonight. Happy Thursday. We really appreciate y'all for tuning in. The great conversation, the great chat. Boys, it's always good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers.
Cheers. Lunch.
See you guys next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
3, 2, 1.